So today I'm interviewing Kyle OGrady from Kyle Hates Hiking. He is a guy that has, I gotta tell you, the best YouTube thumbnails on the internet, and also by far the most entertaining hiking YouTube channel on the internet. Guaranteed. So you got to check that out. But he's also one trail away from being a triple crowner, as he's completed the PCT and the Appalachian Trail. And so some of the things we're going to talk about today is I really want to get into a lot of the PCT because I'm selfishly interested into that. But yeah, welcome to the podcast, Kyle.
Chad, thank you so much. I had a great time chatting with you the other day on my show, and I'm so grateful that you were down to have me come back on here too. Or not come back on here. It's early. It's not early, but for me, it's early. I've been sleeping in a lot. I'm still drinking coffee, but we're going to get through it. It's going to be a good time. I'm excited. I do genuinely appreciate it, man. Thank you for having me on.
That's right, brother. I feel like we need to have our own show called Kyle and Chad, because that's the two names that are always just getting butchered.
Dude, I was thinking, sorry, I totally cut you off there. I was thinking about that this morning a little bit, except I don't exactly know what your thought was because I didn't let you finish. But I was thinking this morning, I was like, Kyle and Chad are the two names that people always use to associate with like douchebag, like frat bros, especially Chad, but Kyle a little bit too. And I was like, that'd be an interesting dynamic.
Oh gosh, I know, man. I'm like, guys, I just want you to know that I did not pick my name. I just want everybody to know that I did not pick my name. My parents, God bless them, but they really kind of.
His mom, Karen, chose his name. Chad.
Yeah, right. Can you imagine? Oh, gosh. Yeah. So anyway, maybe we'll have a Kyle and Chad podcast at some point. But like I said, I really am interested in the PCT, probably because I want to do it next year. So one of the first questions I wanted to ask Kyle was, is the PCT worth it? What are your thoughts about it? Would you do it again? And was it like a good decision? What are your thoughts all about the PCT?
Yeah. So one thing I just want to make clear is that I didn't actually end up finishing the entire PCT. I did about 80% of it. Every time I do a podcast, I always am like, oh, I should actually look at the exact amount of miles I did. I calculated it like shortly after I got back, but I don't remember. It was around 2,200, maybe just slightly less than that. So I did most of it, but I didn't actually finish it, to be totally clear. And we can get into that. It's mostly because of fires. But is it worth it, dude? Like, I think so. For me, I didn't do the PCT specifically because I was like interested in the PCT. I did it because I'm just like a hiking nerd, and I did the AT a few years prior. And so naturally I wanted to do another one. And so I chose the PCT next. So I think it's worth it. Would I do it again? No, honestly. Not because of anything specific to the PCT, but just because it's a lot on your body. And I really only feel like I got 3 of the long ones in me, and I've already done 2 of them at this point. And so if I'm going to do one more, I want it to be the CDT. But that's just me. I do know people who have hiked the PCT like multiple times. And so, but yeah, that's just me. But is it worth it? I think so. You just gotta be ready. As ready as you can possibly be for something like that, which you're not going to be able to be completely ready. Even if you've done long through hikes before, as I found out. But yeah, I think it's worth it.
So much gold there. The first thing I want to ask, or kind of piggyback off of that, is how, because you've done now 2 long hikes, how has your perspective of the world, just like of the world in general, like changed when you come back from that? Because I know for myself, even after just like a 500-mile trail, I'm a different person from the start to the end, and I'm a different person. I carry that different person with me now throughout my life. So I got to say, it's got to be on a totally different scale now with 2 of these long trails under your belt.
Yeah. That's such a deep question, dude. We should have taken some mushrooms before this or something. No. No, it's a good question. I'm not trying to just be a dick. I'm trying to think like, how has my perspective kind of shifted? I love food a lot more. That's like a joke, but it's also like true. Like genuinely, I feel like through hiking has really like given me an appreciation for like good, fresh food, even healthy food. But patience.
Mm.
I feel like I've become a lot more patient. This was even honestly before I even started to do the long hikes. So that's kind of a bit of a side note, I guess. But it's definitely like made me be a lot more patient, because sometimes you just got to be patient and just keep hiking before you can get to that overlook or that mountain or that campsite or that town or whatever it is. I think the biggest thing though is it's just made me appreciate not living out of a backpack, which isn't a great way to put it. I guess I should rephrase it in that it's just made me appreciate like creature comforts a lot more, I guess. And that's especially strong, you know, in the weeks and maybe even the months right after you get back from a long through hike. You're just like, because I remember distinctly on the PCT, there was times where I would just be like, dude, I would just love to just be in a bed. Or even when I was in town, like at a hotel or something on the PCT, it always felt like my time was limited there. And like I had to, it just didn't really feel like, you know, I don't know. And one thing I remember on the AT actually too, not so much on the PCT, but on the AT, there would be times, because the AT crosses a lot of roads, and there'd be times where I would like cross a road, not to go into town or anything, just like a normal road crossing, keep going. And I would like see the cars going by, and I would like, look at them going by, and I'd be like, oh, that person gets to go home to a bed tonight, and that person gets to go home and watch TV on a couch or whatever, and I'm just out here like kind of, you know, in the thick of it. And so I don't know, I'm kind of going all over the place here, but hopefully I somewhat answered your question there.
No, that's awesome. And so in our podcast before, Kyle talked about how the F do you do a 100-mile race, right? And I told him, I was like, I think it would be harder to do a through hike. And the reason I said that is because of like kind of what you said right there. Because I feel like there's so many opportunities to quit on a through hike. Like you're in a hotel, but then you have to go back out to the woods. Like you're in this nice, comfy, like it's very tempting. It has to be. You're crossing these roads, so you see all these people like driving past. Like it's got to be like really tempting to just jump off. And I'm sure you probably saw that with people.
Yeah. It's definitely tempting. It really just depends on like what state of the hike you're in, even just day to day. You know, because some days you're feeling great, and like you're stoked to be out there. And then there's other days where things just aren't going well, and you kind of get that where you're like, oh man, that family over there gets to go home and eat McDonald's tonight. Which I guess, to be fair, you still get to eat McDonald's a lot on a through hike. I probably ate McDonald's more on my through hikes than I normally do, actually. So maybe that's not the best example, but you know what I mean. It's just like you're like two people in the same spot in the same moment in time, but it's like just two very different dynamics. But it's obviously it's like I said, like it's still like totally worth it. It's obviously a great experience. It's good and useful and easy to talk about the bad stuff. But just to be clear to everybody, it's obviously worth it. It's obviously like very rewarding and stuff too. So it's not all bad.
Yeah. Awesome. So you touched on it a little bit, but you weren't able to finish because of wildfires. I'm guessing in Washington, around in there.
Dude,
Washington,
all
Oregon.
over the place in California and Oregon and Washington. It was a whole mess.
Did you have any, because I totally get, as somebody that when I first moved to Oregon, like I didn't get wildfires. I didn't get smoke. Like I didn't understand that concept. Right. What were you thinking when that was happening? You're probably like, what the fuck?
Yeah. I mean, we never got like super close to any of them. Thankfully, it wasn't like we got ran off the trail. It was more, there was sections like up ahead of us that ended up closing before we got there. And then, so we had to skip around them. And then the ending was a whole mess, but it's a bummer, dude. Like I'm an East Coaster. I'm from Vermont. And so like, yeah, obviously I knew that wildfires were a thing on the PCT. I even knew, at least on a surface level, I knew that the chances of having to miss a section because of fires was likely. But what happened is we got okay. So I kind of went into the trail with that in mind, and then We got through the desert, no fires, no closures. There was a couple that, or at least one that I can remember that happened in a town that we had already passed through. So we kind of dodged that. I think it was a pretty short one, so I think we would have been okay. But we got through the desert, no fires. So the gears start turning, and I'm like, all right, well, that's a pretty good sign. Like, we're already, you know, a good way through, and we haven't had to skip anything. And then we get through the Sierra, that whole section, which I guess, I mean, I guess there's fires there too. It is a little bit wetter, but I mean, shit, I mean, Tahoe, what was that fire back in 2021? Damn it, why can't I remember? There's some guy, what was it?
In Lake Tahoe. I went through actually, I did a bike packing around Lake Tahoe, and I had to go through that, and that Caldor Fire maybe, or something like that.
That sounds familiar. I think there was another one too. There's some guy from California screaming at his phone right now, like, these idiots don't even know. But I know there's a huge fire through there. So anyways, got through the Sierras, no fires. Got halfway down the trail, no fires. And so we're in Northern California at this point. And so even though I went in knowing that there was likely going to be fires and closures, we got so far that I was starting to be like, you know what? I think we might be able to pull this off. And I kind of convinced myself, or I don't even know if I convinced myself. I just kind of like became naive to the fact that it could still happen. I was like, oh, like maybe we'll be lucky. It's going to be different for us. Everything's going so well. And then shortly before we got to the California-Oregon border, it was at the point where we were probably, I don't remember exactly, maybe like 150, 200 miles away from the Oregon border for state crossing. And so like we were starting to get really hyped for that, you know, and we find out that I think it was the McKinney fire. Was that it?
That sounds familiar. Yeah.
I think that's what I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what it was. The Dixie fire was the one I was thinking of a second ago, by the way. The McKinney fire happened, and the PCT was closed at the Oregon border and going south. And so we're just like, oh man, we're not going to get to cross the border. We ended up skipping to kind of go around that fire. And then feel free to I'm just kind of rambling about fires at this point. Feel free to interject whenever, cut me off. But then we had to skip another section in Oregon, a small section, only like 60 miles because of another fire. Wendigo fire, maybe something like that. And then we tried to put that behind us. We were like, okay, at least we'll get to hike the second half of Oregon, and at least we'll get to hike all of Washington, right? And so we get to Cascade Locks, we cross into Washington, and we get, you know, a little bit into Washington, things are going okay. And then we learned that the Canadian border of the PCT is closed. And at this point, it really felt like I had finally recovered from skipping the other sections, because I was very like wanting to hike the entire
everything.
Yeah, exactly.
I respect that, dude. I love that.
Yeah, for better or for worse in this case. And I was finally kind of over the fact that we had to skip, and I was like, you know what, we're still going to get to hike to the border, like it's going to be great. And I was really just feeling like rejuvenated and like very motivated again, because there was kind of a lack of that after skipping. And then we find out, yeah, dude, the Canadian border of all places is closed. And so we're not even going to get to hike that. And that was just a huge bummer. And the hike didn't last too much longer after that, I'll say. There were some other fires and some other circumstances, and I could get into that if you want me to. But yeah, fires were a bummer. And, you know, on the AT, I was very much a purist. I wanted to hike the entire trail. I did hike the entire trail, and that's how I've always looked at like through hiking. But in hindsight, I kind of wish I had had a slightly different mindset on the PCT, which is hard for me to say, because when I think of other trails I want to do in the future, I still want to do it with that like purist mindset. But for some trails, I feel like it just isn't realistic. But there are some people last year who were able to hike the entire PCT, so it's not impossible. I don't know. I'm still struggling with it to this day, to be honest. You could probably tell. So it's complicated.
Yeah, that sounds like the toughest part of your journey coming out of it right now, is just kind of grappling with that not being exactly point A to point B ending. But dude, I totally respect that though. Like, cause that's how I am as well. Like I would never like accept a hitch to, I don't know what is it you call it? Like there's yellow blazing.
Yeah, yellow blazing or just skipping.
Yeah, I know for me, dude, and I haven't been in that position, but this is why I've done a lot of like snow stuff in the past now, in the past couple of years, is because if I do the PCT and there's a large snow year, that's a lot of times when people will skip, right? And then they won't come back to do it.
Which is honestly, like, just to be clear, like that's different than people who just skip just for the sake of skipping, which a lot of people do. You know, skipping because of fires and because of dangerous conditions is like very different. I just want to be clear than people who are just like, oh, like I heard it's going to rain this week, so I'm just going to skip ahead 200 miles, you know, that kind of thing. Which, I mean, people could still do that. Like, it's fine. Do what you want. But I just want to be clear. There's a distinction. Anyways, I'm sorry, dude. I totally cut you off there.
No, I mean, that's a good point. But the reason I say that is because I wanted to be prepared, because I always would hear people on podcasts when it was a large snow year, they'd be like, well, I didn't have snow experience, so like I skipped up. And I was like, for me, I was just like, okay, but I want to like do that because I feel like the Sierra is like one of the hardest parts of the trail, whether there's snow or not. I mean, it's pretty, you know, you're up in elevation, it's isolated. We talked about this in your podcast. Like even with no snow, it's hard. So I can't imagine with snow, but yeah. So like, I always really wanted to be very much prepared if I had to go into that with a high snow year. This year, for example, would be like that. And I don't know how many people are going in, but be interesting. It'd be something to grapple with in your head if you were going to go in or not. I'm sure a lot of people are.
Yeah. And I'm sure there's a lot of people skipping too because of that, which I'm, you know, for all the bad things that happened on my hike with the fires and stuff, I am grateful that we did not have to deal with snow at all. Partially because I guess it was a low snow year or whatever, or maybe just a normal one. And then partially because I started pretty late. So I didn't start till mid-May. And so by the time I got to the Sierras, there was a couple like little patches of snow, but like no micro spikes, no ice axe, no worries about snow at all. And I had never really hiked out west before. I've still never like had to carry an ice axe or anything like that. I don't know how to self-arrest. I don't know how to hike through those conditions. So I am grateful. We had like pretty prime conditions going through the Sierras at least.
Yeah, it's like it's a double-edged sword, right? It's like if it's a low snow year, you're probably going to get fires. But if it's a high snow year, you're going to have to deal with snow, but probably no fires. And that's probably what's going to happen.
Maybe, I don't know. People seem to still think there's going to be fires this year. I hope not, dude. I hope not. I want to go back and finish up what I didn't do last year. So
yeah,
please, God.
No, I think you'll be pretty good, dude. I mean, for what it's worth, in my experience living in the PNW, September is the worst month for that. It seems to be. But if you can go July, August or something, well, it'll probably have to be like August, you know?
Yeah, it's going to be August most likely.
Yeah, that would be really good for the North Cascades. It's awesome over there. That's cool.
Oh, so sweet.
You also had a near-death experience on the PCT as well. And this is on a trail that I actually hiked probably just a few months before you were actually there, because they had just opened up what's called the Eagle Creek Trail, because that was decimated by fires several years ago, right? And so I actually had hiked, and I know exactly the place that you talked about where this has happened, but can you kind of just recount that story?
Yeah. So Eagle Creek alternate, it's obviously it's an alternate, so it's not the official PCT, but most PCT hikers take it. But yeah, dude, we're going down this stuff. It's totally burnt out. But then you get down to this river. I don't know the name of the river, but it's like super beautiful. And it's just like the trail follows a straight cliff for like a few miles, if I recall. And it's a huge drop. It's like a couple 100 feet.
Yeah.
And so me and my two other buddies are going along, and I was in the middle. My friend Brandon was a little bit ahead of me, maybe 30, 40 yards ahead of me. And then my friend Flossie was a little bit further, maybe like 50 yards behind me. And we're going up the drop off is on the left of me, and to the right of me, it's basically just a wall. And then, you know, up above the wall part, there's like a slight incline. The trail is just kind of carved out in like a really steep hill, you could say. And dude, we're going along. I had my headphones in, and all of a sudden, like, it all happened so fast, it's kind of hard to describe, but I just felt like a vibration, like something was happening. And this all happens in a split second. I like look up, I see my friend Brandon kind of tucked himself against the side of the wall, and The gears start turning, and I'm like, I think a tree's falling. Like that was my initial thought. Like I thought a tree was falling, on the right, like heading towards the cliff, basically the drop off, which meant it would have gone over the trail. And so I just started running, and all of a sudden, like I actually didn't see it because I was running away from it, but I saw the aftermath and heard the aftermath. I guess a giant boulder. My friend Brandon, he saw everything because he had turned around and was looking back at me at this point. And he said a giant boulder the size of a small car, those were his words, just came tumbling over the trail and off the cliff, like the 200 feet down, and just exploded into the river. And in his words, it was about, his estimation, it was about 15 yards behind me when it actually came across the trail. And so like if I hadn't started running, like I don't know, like it probably wouldn't have hit me, but like dude, it was so freaking close. I was like shaking afterwards. And also my friend Flossie was behind me, and so it went between the two of us. And so if we had been like hiking closer together, or even if the boulder hadn't hit us, it could have like startled us if it was a little bit closer to us, and like we could have fallen off the cliff. Like super, super sketchy. It's like, what are the odds of that happening? And it was just like one of those instinct moments where I just felt like something was off. I just started running. I couldn't tell exactly where it was going to come down, obviously. And a little bit of luck, a little bit of bad luck that it happened in the first place. And just like, honestly, one of the craziest, probably the closest like near-death experience I've ever had hiking. It was nuts. I think it probably had something to do with the fact that it was in a burned area. It was like the ground's just like looser, I'm guessing.
Sure.
But like, yeah, dude, I'll never forget that. Super crazy.
No, that's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah, because everything's just so loose and like not compacted there, and they always afraid of runoff or like landslides and things during high rain events and stuff. But
yeah,
so
we could
like it vibrate.
Oh yeah, before, because like it was basically like the trail was like a straight wall on the right, and then it was above me that like the incline started again, and so I couldn't see it coming down at all. So I could just feel it and then like hear it. And then that combined with the fact that I saw my friend up ahead of me crouched against the side of the wall on the trail, I was just like, dude. And then like it went over, and it was like an explosion in the river, just a huge boulder. And then we could actually see it. It was so big that even though the river was like hundreds of feet below us, we could actually see it where it came to rest in the river a little bit, just like a giant boulder, dude. It was insane. Brandon got the best picture because he had turned around and faced me. So he got to see me run. He got to see the boulder come down behind me, and he got to watch it go all the way down into the river. Insane. Insane.
Well, good reflex and reaction there.
I know, dude. Like I didn't even think about it. I just ran.
Yeah, it's always weird after those experiences. I had an experience on Mount Hood a few months ago where I got hit by some ice, and I like actually fell down the mountain and like I dropped both my ice axes, because that's the thing to do in that situation, right? So smart. And dude, I was like literally falling like 20 feet down the mountain. People are like screaming, and I just could arrest with my crampons, which you shouldn't do usually because you get flipped over. But like that's all I could do.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, and then like the next few days afterwards, you're kind of just I was in a weird headspace of, wow, I could have died, I guess.
Yeah, dude, you gotta be careful. I'm glad you're all right. That sounds, see, that's like totally above my pay grade. I've never done like anything where I needed an ice axe or anything, like I said. So that's scary. That's scary to hear.
Get you out here, dude. And since I'm living next to Colorado now, we got to get you out here to do some 14ers and stuff.
Yeah.
And scrambles in.
Oh,
Kyle and Chad.
Dude, let's do it.
That'd be so cool.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you got it.
No, I was going to make some stupid comment about
Kyle
us being frat bros on the mountain.
We need like shirts and stuff. And yeah. That's awesome. So, okay. So you're also, for the people that don't know, Kyle is also a content creator, has a really big YouTube channel that's doing awesome.
Yeah, my OnlyFans is popping off too.
And OnlyFans, I mean, you got to get those feet after the end of a 25-mile day.
Dude, I'm sure there's some girl out there who does that.
Right. So how is it creating content? Because you documented the whole PCT as well, which is, by the way, like, people that don't know, like, creating content while you're actually still hiking too is extremely hard. It is awesome though that you were hiking with a buddy, and that, so you don't always have to set up the tripod and stuff and like get yourself walking like IB Tap does. Like that's hard. That's hard stuff.
Yeah, it is.
So how was it creating content and hiking? How did it go for you on the PCT?
It was good, dude. Like, I'm so grateful that I did it. I mean, obviously, so that everyone could watch, but also just like, it's awesome to look back on it now too. Yes. And so I hired somebody to edit the videos for me. So that was the biggest thing I was worried about. I documented a lot of shorter hikes before. And so like, I knew that I could like film it well. I knew that I could like do it in a way that was minimally invasive in terms of the hike itself. And the big thing I was worried about was editing. I was like, there's no way I'm going to have time or the energy to edit while I'm out there. And so I hired somebody to edit the videos for me, which took like a huge weight off my shoulders and also made the videos a lot better than I think than they definitely would have been otherwise. And so I was in a pretty good rhythm with it, dude. Like, I was always thinking about the pacing of the video. And so like, I knew when I needed to or didn't need to film. So I could be like, okay, I've got enough shots for now. I don't have to worry about it for the next few miles. I can just focus on the hike or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
And then a lot of it was, I mean, as far as what I would say, I never planned any of that out ever. Right. I would always just turn the camera on and just say some bullshit and or point it at my friends and have them say some bullshit. And there's usually a lot to talk about when you're doing something like a through hike. So it came out pretty good. And like, I'm very proud of those videos. Those are probably the best videos I've ever done. They're not my most viewed videos, but they're definitely the best videos I think that I've ever done. And like, I couldn't have done it without Luke, who was editing, and I couldn't have done it without Flossie and Brandon, who were the guys I was hiking with too. So I'm very, very grateful for the way those came out.
Dude, awesome. Yeah, it's a good point. You really don't have to make up drama on the trail because the story naturally unfolds.
Oh yeah.
The way it always goes, right?
Oh yeah.
And one thing I really like about your videos too is you're very transparent. You're not, we talked about this a little bit in your podcast, but it's not always sunshine and rainbows. Like, you're not afraid to show some of the scarier parts, some of the parts where you're lower. And I think a lot of people relate to that. And I think that is one reason why your channel does really good in that aspect as well. Not only the fact that you have some kick-ass YouTube thumbnails, but people do relate to you. And dude, if you look at your comments and stuff, and I'm sure you do, people just, they eat that stuff up. So
yeah dude, I have the best subscribers on YouTube. I'm so grateful for all the people that watch my videos. Like, it's unreal. So grateful. It's kind of funny, dude. So I just made a video. I haven't posted it yet. I'm not sure when this is going to be up, but it'll probably be out by the time this comes up. I filmed this video yesterday where I was kind of reacting to some comments, and somebody wrote like, oh, like, so many people on YouTube, like hiking YouTubers, influencers or whatever, they like only show like the good stuff or whatever. And I don't know. I kind of feel like a lot of people don't. I kind of feel like that's almost like an overused saying, being like, oh, people only show the good stuff. I think on Instagram, it's definitely true, because on Instagram, it's just a photo. So it's kind of harder to capture, but like the bad stuff too. But on YouTube, I feel like most people, and not that I've watched everybody to be fair, but I feel like a lot of YouTubers, hiking YouTubers, do actually like capture the good and the bad. If anything, maybe not even because they're trying to like keep it real, but if anything, just because it makes good content, like, like it's just a good, like, some negative, some bad stuff, give some drama or whatever. So that's kind of an interesting thought, because I've definitely been that guy that goes on podcasts before, and I'm like, oh, dude, like, I make sure I show the good and the bad. Like, nobody does that or whatever. I've definitely been that guy, like, for sure. And I feel like everyone literally goes on podcasts and says this shit nowadays. They're just like, oh, like, dude, my content, like, I keep it real. Like, I don't know. I'm like, no offense, I'm not trying to like.
You're so admirable. We're so admirable. Oh my god.
I know, that's just the thought I had the other day when I was making that video, and I just think it's kind of funny. Like, that really does sound like the most generic influencer shit to say. Just be like, dude, I just like to show the good and the bad, to like show people that it's not always like good. So I don't know, it's kind of funny.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. The reason I bring it up is a lot of people say it on my stuff, and so I'm like, because I don't watch too many hiking channels for that much anymore. I used to a lot, but it is easy to do that, especially when you have a vlog style content such as IB Tats, where he's doing it every single day. Because obviously bad things are popping up every single day. The stuff where I see it less so though is where it's a giant hour-long movie of the PCT, and then it's just all just like,
oh, great. Interesting.
Yeah,
interesting.
Like, dude, there's one video, I'm not gonna say it, but there's one video that I watched halfway, and then I was just like, there's no obstacles, there's no like, there wasn't compelling to me. And so it's like those hour and a half long videos that I
honestly, I haven't really watched too many of those, so maybe I'd like to make one of those too after I go back and finish. So like, maybe I'll have to watch a few, and I'll definitely have that in mind now.
That would be sweet.
With my hike, there was plenty of bad stuff with the fires and some other stuff too. So that will not be an issue with mine. But if I did that, if I put out like an hour-long video summing up my hike and there was nothing bad in it, my audience would be like, dude, what the hell are you doing? We saw the vlogs. Like, we know like shit went wrong. So I couldn't do that. And it wouldn't be good. It wouldn't be good content. Like, you got to have some suspense, some drama. Like, every good story has like a nice start, some drama, some bad stuff, some conflict in the middle, and then a nice happy ending. So that's how you gotta how you gotta do it.
Well, so kind of transitioning, because your current content right now, or what you've been uploading as of the last few months, has been these stories of hikers that some different kind of stories of hikers.
Describe, isn't it? I call it mystery videos.
Yeah, like tragedy videos, mystery videos. Yeah, exactly. And I gotta say, so the one I watched a while ago was the one on Otter, which was the guy on the CDT. And bro, I watch, first of all, you do a really, really great job of, because this is I feel like this could be a touchy subject, right?
Yeah. Oh, it is, definitely.
You do a really good job of being respectful of the person that did it. And then you try to, what are the lessons from this type of thing, right? And you cover it very respectfully. But I got to say, that story, dude, it kind of haunted me for 2 to 3 days afterwards.
It's crazy.
It was so disturbing, dude.
Yeah.
What was it like? I mean, maybe you could, if you want to provide a little context, you can, but what was it like covering that story? I guess it probably would be, maybe if you want to give like a quick summary.
Yeah, sure.
A summary of like what actually happened. So maybe the audience could know, and like, so they don't do this too.
Yeah, no. Oh, I appreciate you saying that. Like, I do it respectfully, genuinely, because like, I really try to do it like as respectfully as possible. Like, my biggest fear is I'm going to accidentally do something not respectfully one day, and then I'm just going to get like in trouble. So I really do try to do it respectfully. But so dude, with Otter, man, I cannot believe I had never heard this story before. And so I actually had never even heard of it until somebody in the comments of one of my other mystery videos was like, hey, you should like look into this story. And so I just quickly Googled it, and I started reading, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I've never heard of this. And I was like, more thru hikers need to know about this story so that they can avoid this. So anyways, this gentleman, his trail name was Otter, extremely experienced thru hiker. I'm talking one of the most experienced thru hikers in history. He had triple crowned. I think he was on his 3rd triple crown on the CDT when he passed away. So like, it wasn't just like a beginner who didn't know what they were doing, who got themselves into trouble because of their ignorance. It was not that. This guy, extremely accomplished, extremely experienced. And he was hiking the CDT southbound for the 3rd time.
Third time.
Well, sorry, I don't know if he was hiking it the way I phrased it there. I don't know if he was hiking it southbound for the 3rd time, but he was hiking the CDT, I should say, for the 3rd time. He was going southbound on this particular hike. And he was kind of pushing it in terms of the season. And so it was mid-November at this point, and he was in southern Colorado, right around the New Mexico border. And my understanding is that he knew there was some winter weather approaching, and he had actually taken a few days off to get some new gear. And according to chats he had with the trail angel he was staying with at the time, he was aware of the winter weather. He was a slightly older gentleman. You know, off the top of my head, I can't remember his age. I wish I did. I want to say he was in his 50s, I'm pretty sure. And despite the storms, despite the weather, you know, I'm not sure exactly how much he knew about it. He probably didn't know exactly how bad it was going to be, but he hiked out. This was like November 15th, I want to say, something like that. Crossed into New Mexico, and he basically became snowbound. And so something must have happened where he didn't have the strength to hike through the snow. And so he actually did try to backtrack to get back to the road. He couldn't make it. And so he basically just kind of set up shop on the CDT and was just stuck. And he waited and waited. He didn't have a GPS with an SOS button. He didn't have cell service. He waited. After, I think it was a couple weeks, he hiked a few miles down to a Forest Service campground. And there was a bathroom there. And he got into the bathroom. He waited. He tried to go out another time. He didn't have the strength. And obviously he was just getting weaker and weaker as time went on. And then eventually he just died in that bathroom. Dude, he survived for well over a month before. We don't know exactly when he died, but he was keeping a journal and stuff. And so that's how we know all these details. And yeah, dude, for well over a month, he just waited in that bathroom. And one of the really haunting things about it is he expressed immense regret in his journal about wishing he hadn't hiked out, wishing he had done this differently or whatever. Being I brought this on myself, essentially. He really regretted it and owned up to it in his journal. And it's just super haunting. So there's tons of takeaways from it, but dude, when I heard that story, I was like, I cannot believe I've done 2 through hikes at this point. I've done thousands of miles, and I've never heard this story before. Yeah. And so I was like, it needs to be talked about. And that video went kind of viral, honestly.
Crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. And so a lot more people have heard his story now, it's a very disturbing, sad story, but I do think there's just a lot of takeaways from it. So I'm glad that people have been able to hear it for that reason. And just super sad, super just disturbing, like you said, is crazy.
Yeah. No, dude, such a great summary of that. I'm so glad I had you do that and not me. So yeah, that was perfect. Yeah. Like you said, what really is haunting about that too is the fact that he was so experienced too. Mm-hmm. A lot of times you think that once you get all this experience, that'll never happen to you.
Yeah.
And then when you see someone with that much experience, that something like that happened to them, that's spooky. That can be spooky.
Yeah, dude. That was one of the biggest things that kind of stood out to me too.
Right.
It's almost like your experience gets to a point where it actually works against you in terms of safety. You would think the more experienced you are, the more safe you would be.
Great.
But that at some point it could potentially cloud your judgment a little bit. You get overconfident. And I don't know exactly what his reasons are. I don't know what was going through his head when he hiked out. But we do know that he, like I said, was extremely accomplished, and he knew that it was getting cold. He knew there was a chance of snow because of his gear choices. But yeah, dude, I don't know. It's super scary. And then one other thing I think I should mention too is that they did search for him because he was out there for, more than a month before he died. And so they were searching for him, but they didn't really know exactly where he was. He hadn't really left his plans with anybody. He had spoken to the trail angel he was with about it, but that was pretty much it. And so they were looking for him. They got a false sighting in a town further down the trail. So then they kind of concentrated their searches down there instead of, up near the Colorado border where he was. And so, they weren't able to find him until the spring when the first CDT thru hiker that year hiked through and
which
saw
he
the bathroom.
which he wrote the note on the on
Yeah,
the
so he was in the bathroom at this Forest Service campground, and he carved. I'm paraphrasing. He carved like dead CDT hiker inside, and like wrote his name and stuff. And so the hiker that eventually did roll up in May, didn't even open the door. They just saw the note on the door, and they were eventually able to get in and find him in there. Super sad.
Right.
It's a bummer, and there's a lot of takeaways. And so I hope that, given so many people saw that video, I hope that people would think twice about going out in certain conditions, would think twice about their own level of experience, maybe, and also think twice about hiking without a some sort of SOS GPS. Because if he had one of those, dude, like it would have been unpleasant. It's still dangerous because he would have been out there stuck for a couple of days at least, but he would have survived. Definitely.
Makes me just actually think about, I lost my Garmin InReach Mini coming down Mount Hood about a year ago. And so then I was borrowing my girlfriend's, but then we broke up. So now I have to actually get.
Yeah, you got to actually get one. Huh?
Dude, it kind of sucks. They're like $300, but like,
yeah,
you need them.
Yeah, you do. I didn't start hiking with one, dude, until I started making these mystery videos.
Oh, really?
I never had one on the AT. I didn't have one on the PCT all this time. And it wasn't until I started making these videos that I was like, dude, you know what? There's been multiple stories I've covered where people certainly would have had a much better chance of surviving if they had one of these. And so I was like, dude, I gotta get one. So I always carry one now.
That's good. Well, that's good. Well, on a lighter note, couple more questions for you. This always cracks me up on your channel. What is the thing between you and Becker, Dan Becker?
Yeah, dude, that's been a running gag on my channel for a while. So I don't know. When I first started my channel, I just would make little jokes about Dan Becker. Nothing like mean spirited or anything, you know.
Right.
But I would just make little goofs and gags about Dan Becker. And then eventually we got in contact. This was when my channel was super small still. I didn't even have 1,000 subscribers, and he was probably at I don't remember exactly, maybe 10 or 20,000. So he had an audience, but it wasn't the size it is now. And we just started chatting, and he loved it. He thought it was hilarious. He was a really good sport about it, which I appreciated. And my audience loved it too. And so I don't really make jokes about him anymore now, but for a while, dude, that was the gag on my channel was Dan Becker jokes and stuff. And it was funny, but Dan and I are friends. And he's actually been super helpful to me, just giving me YouTube advice and content advice throughout the years. Even before I had an audience, like I said, he didn't have to do that. He didn't have to put up with this idiot who was just making fun of him all the time. But he was all about it, and he loved it. And so he's been super fun, and I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, he seems like a good guy. I mean, he lives in Wisconsin, I believe.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm
Kenosha.
from. Yeah, okay. And I can totally tell by his accent. I mean, that's kind of what I sound like when I used to drink. People would always say, "Oh, your accent comes out when you do that." But yeah, no, he seems like a cool guy. I did see where he almost died in the Grand Canyon, but they had an SOS beacon. There you go. It kind of comes full circle right there. And that was an interesting thing for him to film and document, but good lessons too.
Yeah, I'm glad he's okay. He's okay.
Yeah. So
I'm glad I didn't have to end up making a video about him.
Right. Gosh dang it, Dan. Yeah. So I guess to kind of close this out, what is next for, well, we know what's next for hiking, right? It sounds like it's the CDT.
Well, yeah, the CDT, but more immediately, I want to go finish up what I missed on the PCT. I'm hoping to do that this year. I don't have any flights booked, but I have a permit, and I'm most likely, my lease is over in July, so it's either that or I go back to my parents' house. I think I'd rather go finish the PCT.
Where are you going to start then?
I'm going to start in Mount Shasta, and I've got to go from Shasta up to Ashland, and then I have to go up and do the 60-mile section in the middle of Oregon, and then I got to go up to Stevens Pass and hike from there north to the Washington-Canadian border.
Dude, I very much respect that.
Yeah, it's like 500. It's like 500 miles.
Kind of be a logistical nightmare, but not.
Oh yeah, dude. No,
but
it's gonna be bad, dude. There's like a 7-hour drive between the last section in Oregon all the way up to Leavenworth, where I have to get back on. It's gonna be a pain. I'm gonna have to rent a car.
Let me know. Off of the air, we'll talk about. I got a lot of contacts up there. So,
oh, dude, I would love that, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah, a ton of contacts that can help you out, I think. So let's talk about that off air. Yeah, a little longer. But what about for your channel? Where do you see that going? Your YouTube?
I'm gonna keep kind of doing what I'm doing, to be honest. Like, it seems to be working pretty well, and I'm enjoying it. The audience seems to be enjoying it, so I'm going to keep making like backpacking related videos, you know, tips and gear and stuff like that. And then I'm going to keep doing these mystery videos too. There's no shortage of stories of, you know, people getting lost or things going wrong or just weird shit happening when it comes to the trail. And so I'm just going to keep at it. And then I would like to put together like a long, like documentary style video of my PCT hike, but I haven't even gone back and finished it yet, let alone put the video together. So that's, you know, it's going to be a while before that is a thing, but I would like to do that as well. I am starting to kind of get the gears turning, talking to my editor, Luke, about it a little bit. He's going to help me. And so hopefully we'll be able to put that together. I don't think I'm going to, I probably shouldn't even be saying this, 'cause like I said, I haven't even fucking gone back and hiked it yet, but I don't think I'm going to tell anybody on the channel about it. It's not like a secret. I'm talking about it right now, but like, I don't think I'm going to be like, hey guys, like, get ready for this. I think I'm just going to kind of drop it out of nowhere and just see what people do.
Yeah, no, that's interesting, man. What I've found for my own YouTube stuff is that when I combine them all into one documentary, they do 12 times better.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I have a contact at YouTube that actually, he works for you. He does the ads in YouTube, and he was the one that recommended I do that. And then once I did, I was like, oh shit, I don't know if I'm gonna ever do like episodic ones again. I'm not sure. I don't know how I'll ever do that, but yeah, and it's interesting. I think interesting how people like to consume it.
Yeah, I think the episodes make sense for like the AT and the PCT and maybe the CDT too, but every other trail, I think you're better off just doing one long one for sure.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Awesome, dude. Well, so where can people catch up with you at?
All right. So YouTube, Kyle Hates Hiking. Just type it in. And then Instagram, my handle is also Kyle Hates Hiking. And then I also have a podcast. And this lovely gentleman I'm speaking to right now was just a guest on it. And it was an awesome episode. The podcast is called Trail Tales. Type that in. It's the one with like the blue cover. Go check that out, dude. TikTok. Ugh, I cringe every time I say that, but I'm on TikTok. Kyle Hates Hiking. I think that's it. No OnlyFans. I was joking about that. No Twitter. Twitter sucks. I think that's it.
Awesome. Well, yeah, his podcast, it was actually the one that kind of inspired me to do the Colorado Trail, and we talked about that on your podcast too. But yeah, you got a lot of really good episodes there. There's some older ones in there that I definitely recommend people listen to. And yeah, man, just a great channel, great guy. Great to have you on here. There was something I was going to say as well, and then I totally forgot. And I'll probably that was the thing. Kyle, you gave me such a great introduction on your podcast. I was like, I'm going to rip that out. And like every time I meet a new girl now, I'm just going to play that for them.
And here's my intro.
Yeah. No big deal. It was so nice of you. So I really appreciate that, dude. So awesome.
Of course.
We'll have you on another time.
Yeah, dude. I appreciate you having me on. Like, I love what you're doing. I love your attitude. You're doing some badass stuff. So thank you so much for having me on. And I would love to come back whenever you're willing to have me.